In a shipyard, a truck driver parks like everything's normal. Then he suddenly looks up, realizes something's about to go very wrong, and jumps out of the cab without thinking twice. Seconds later, multiple containers crash down from above on his truck. He didn't just dodge damage, he dodged destiny. This is why you never stand under anything that can fall. In a scrapyard, a worker is casually sitting on a gas cylinder like it's just another chair. But the moment pressure kicks in, that cylinder launches out from under him like a missile, shooting across the floor and leaving him stunned on the ground. No injuries, just a miracle, and a reminder that nothing in a scrapyard is just a seat. Anyone with basic driving sense knows you back down a slope. Pretty simple stuff. But this forklift driver thought gravity was optional. He rolled forward instead, and the whole machine tipped like a folding chair at a barbecue. One wrong angle, 0 second chances. Next time, follow the pros. Your forklift will thank you. At a construction site, everything looks routine. Workers are moving around near an excavation area, standing on what appears to be solid ground. One worker in a red shirt is focused on his task until the unthinkable happens. Without a single warning sign, the earth beneath him collapses like a trapdoor. The soil caves inward, and he disappears in an instant, swallowed by a hidden void. Ground failures like this don't announce themselves. Poor compaction, disturbed soil, or underground cavities can sit silently beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to give way. When the ground fails, there's no reaction time. Burial under collapsing soil can cause suffocation or crushing within minutes. This incident is a brutal reminder that danger isn't always visible. Before any work starts near trenches or excavations, the ground must be tested, surveyed, and stabilized. What looks solid may be anything but, and there are no second chances when the earth gives out beneath your feet. At a gas station in the middle of an ordinary day, a group of people is sitting in plastic chairs, chatting and scrolling on their phones while a fuel tanker quietly unloads just a few feet behind them. Nothing dramatic, just another slow afternoon. But in the background, you can almost feel the tension building, because everyone seems to forget they're basically hanging out next to a giant tank of flammable liquid. Then one man decides it's the perfect moment to light a cigarette. The second the flame sparks, invisible vapors flash like a trail of gunpowder, and a line of fire races straight toward the unloading point. Chairs flip, people sprint, and the calm scene instantly turns into chaos. Gas station employees react fast, grabbing extinguishers and blasting the flames before the situation turns into a full-scale disaster. Within seconds, the fire is out, smoke is clearing, and everyone is left staring at what almost happened. One tiny decision nearly lit up an entire fuel station. Proof that safety rules don't exist to ruin the moment. They exist to make sure there is a next moment. So we've got an excavator operator trying to load his machine onto a flatbed like it's just another day at the office. One ramp is perfectly lined up, the other is basically in another postcode, but everyone's acting like nothing could possibly go wrong. He eases backwards, slow and confident, until the tracks hit that floating ramp. In one heartbreaking wobble, the excavator tilts, slides, and drops straight onto its side like it just gave up on life. The driver probably replaying every bad decision he ever made. Moral of the story: heavy equipment isn't trust fall material. Check your ramps before gravity checks you. Crane's trying to drag a truck out of the drain like it owes him money. It lifts an inch, groans like my knees on Monday, then gives up and drops the truck right back in. That's not a rescue, that's a round trip. Stabilize your load, boys. Alright, picture this: construction site buzzing, pedestrians and workers wandering around like nothing overhead could possibly go wrong. Meanwhile, high above, a big blue panel is just resting on the scaffolding like trust is a fastening system. Then, no warning, no wobble, it breaks loose and drops straight down, missing a few people by pure luck before nailing a worker who never saw it coming. That's not an accident, that's bad planning. Anything at height gets secured, tethered, and double-checked, and nobody walks under a suspended load. If there's no exclusion zone, you're not managing a site, you're running a raffle with gravity. Alright, picture this: some genius ends up getting hoisted dozens of feet into the air, hanging on like he's part of the crane rental package. No harness, no anchor, just raw optimism and a pair of sweaty hands. And everyone on the ground is staring up like, yeah, that seems totally fine, but gravity doesn't do favors. He loses his grip, drops fast, and suddenly the whole site remembers that safety rules aren't just decorations on the wall. You never, and I mean never, position a worker under a suspended load. Loose clothing, loose gear, bad rigging. That's how you turn a workday into a rescue mission. And if somebody's going up, they'd better be tied off with real fall protection, not trust and prayer, because out here the ground always wins, and luck is a terrible safety plan. Alright, so we're out on the tarmac, fueling a plane, not exactly watering the garden, right? The workers got the hose connected, everything looks routine, and then out of nowhere the fuel line decides it's got a personality. It pops loose and starts pouring jet fuel like someone opened a fire hydrant made of money. And our guy? He's not panicking, he's casually strolling across the spill like he's looking for the snack cart. Meanwhile, hundreds of gallons are racing across the ground, straight toward every ignition source you don't want to think about. Engines, static, sunlight, you name it. Here's the part folks never remember. Flammable liquids don't wait for you to finish your coffee. Fueling requires hands-on control, emergency shutoffs within reach, and a spotter watching the line, not wandering off and trusting gravity to behave. Luck saved the day, not skill. Next time, stay locked in and stay alert, because when fuel hits the pavement, you're one spark away from turning the runway into a bonfire. So we've got a worker leaning in way too close to a running fan, hair tied up like it was negotiated, not secured. And just like every safety poster warns but nobody reads, that fan reaches out and grabs a handful, pulling her in before she even knows what happened. Lucky for her, it's the hair that gets swallowed, not her head, and she comes out shaken but walking. Listen, anything that spins doesn't care how pretty your ponytail is. Tie it back, tuck it in, or tomorrow you're showing up to work with a surprise haircut and a lesson you won't forget. So we're at a loading dock and everything looks nice and organized. Two guys unloading big crates like they've done it 1,000 times. One's up on the truck bed peeling those stacks apart by hand like he's separating pancakes instead of half a ton of lumber in a box. Then one crate starts doing the electric slide. Before he even knows what's happening, it shifts, slips, and takes his balance with it, and he goes right off the truck. And because gravity's got a sick sense of humor, the crates follow him down like they paid for the same ticket and land right where he did. He's lucky he's getting up at all. Look, you don't stand shoulder to shoulder with unsecured loads. You don't play Jenga with freight using just your boots and optimism. Use mechanical lifts, straps, and tools, because out here, one wrong move and the only thing getting unloaded is you onto the ground. So this guy pulls up to a cafe in Vietnam, and instead of stopping, he slams it in reverse and drives straight through the storefront. This wasn't a mistake. He was angry at the man he'd bumped into outside, and he used the truck to finish the argument. Inside, people had no warning. The impact hits two of them, including the cafe owner, the woman wearing the helmet, and she tragically doesn't survive. The other manages to escape with minor injuries. A vehicle is not a weapon. Losing your temper behind the wheel turns a bad moment into a permanent disaster. So we're inside a steel factory, and the overhead crane is gearing up to lift this massive U-shaped metal profile, thousands of pounds hanging by a couple of slings. The operator's getting everything lined up, taking his time, and then one worker decides to step right in front of the load to double-check the connection. That's all it takes. The steel shifts just a hair, not a drop, not a swing, just a tiny tilt, and suddenly he's pinned in the danger zone with nowhere to go. Heavy metal doesn't warn you, and it doesn't negotiate. A few millimeters becomes a life-ending amount of force. Here's the rule: nobody walks under or in front of a suspended load. You don't adjust slings mid-lift, and you don't move unless you've got clear communication with the operator, and the load is completely still. Luck saved him this time. Procedure should have done it instead. Inside a workshop, they've got a big truck tire sitting on a stand like it's just waiting for paperwork. Everything looks calm, no leaks, no warning signs. So one worker steps in and gives it a quick check with his hand, like he's tapping a watermelon at the market. But that tire had other plans. The pressure gives out, and it explodes. Not a hiss, not a pop, just a full-blown blast that sends the worker jumping back like he just met electricity. That's the thing about big tires. All that energy is stored silently, and when it goes fast. Overinflation, hidden cracks, bad mounting, doesn't matter. One weak spot turns a tire into a grenade with tread. That's why you use a safety cage. Stand off to the side and keep your body out of the line of fire, because with heavy equipment, looking safe and being safe aren't the same thing. A forklift driver comes flying in like he's late for a race, all confidence and zero precision. He cuts a turn way too sharp and bang slams straight into the edge of a small pond. The wall cracks, the water bursts out, and suddenly the whole place turns into a mini flood zone. 1 second of cocky driving and the guy accidentally builds his own indoor swimming pool. This is a wild and extremely unsafe lift. 3 forklifts trying to raise 100 tons of steel beams like they're doing synchronized swimming. One tiny wobble and the whole load could snap, tip, or crush everyone nearby. A lift this massive needs a real crane and a real plan. This isn't teamwork, it's a disaster waiting to happen. A woman reaches for one item on an overloaded shelf and the whole thing collapses. Bottles crash, liquid floods the aisle, and the entire section turns into instant chaos. A tiny grab, massive mess. The most basic rule of forklift driving: never race around with the mast raised. This driver ignores it, flies through the warehouse, and the whole load tips, sending the forklift crashing backward. He jumps out just in time, lucky he didn't get crushed under his own machine. This is why you lock out, tag out, and verify every energy source, no exceptions. A utility worker on the ground starts repairing what he thinks is a deadline. He reaches in, tools ready, when the damaged cable suddenly kicks back to life with a violent spark missing him by inches. One unexpected surge and he could have been done. Never assume a line is safe. Test it, verify it. That one step is the difference between a scare and a tragedy. This is why you let go before it's too late. A utility worker grabs onto a line to steady himself, but the tension suddenly rises and the cable yanks him straight off the ground. In seconds, he's lifted almost 10 feet in the air, dangling helplessly. The crew below panics and rushes in, shouting for him to drop. They grab the line, anchor it, and finally pull him down to safety. One split-second hesitation nearly turned routine work into a disaster. Let go early, because gravity doesn't wait. This is why you always maintain safe distance. A lineman leans in to flip a set of switches, thinking it's just another quick task. But as he reaches forward, a sudden arc blast snaps to life, lighting up the panel inches from his hands. He stumbles back in shock while the crew yells for him to move away. One more step and he would have been cooked. Distance saves lives, especially around live power. This is why you always perform a risk assessment. A semi-truck climbs a delivery ramp with a heavy load, but the angle's wrong and the surface is slick. In seconds, the whole rig starts sliding sideways. The driver realizes what's coming and jumps off just in time as the truck slips off the ramp and crashes down. One quick assessment could have prevented the whole mess. Risk checks aren't paperwork, they're survival. Out on a sandy worksite, this excavator operator is trying to ease his machine down a slope that's basically made of sugar. Loose, crumbly sand everywhere and he's taking it slow. Bucket down inch by inch, doing that careful crawl operators use when the ground feels sketchy. You can tell he knows the slope isn't trustworthy, but loose sand doesn't give warnings, it gives way. Just as he tries to correct his angle, the whole slope shifts under the tracks. The excavator tilts, the bucket digs in, and suddenly gravity takes over. She starts sliding, twisting, and then full flip, rolling onto her side like a toy truck in slow motion. The operator tries to counter with the boom, but once that sand gives up, there's no saving it. Workers sprint toward the scene, hearts in their throats, and then miracle. He climbs out of the cab, shaken, covered in dust, but completely unharmed. Equipment totaled, pride destroyed, but the man walks away. And that's why slopes made of loose sand. Treat them like they're waiting to betray you. Alright boys, here's a scene straight out of How to Test Your Luck and Lose. We're at a shipyard, cranes hoisting a heavy load, something you'd never want above your head. But look at this guy, just casually walking right under it like he's checking lunch menus. No awareness, no looking up, nothing. And that load, you can already see the crane struggling, line shaking like it's about to give up on life. And then bam, the whole thing slips, comes down like a meteor, smashes the truck's platform so flat you could serve breakfast on it. Metal twisting, dust flying, everyone suddenly remembering they like being alive. And that pedestrian, he just cleared out by pure dumb luck. This is exactly why we preach it every day. If it's hanging, you don't walk under it, ever. Alright folks, here's another day in the industrial jungle gone sideways. We've got a big old chunk of metal hanging from a crane, something that should make everyone in the building take 2 steps back. But no, it's swinging along like it's on a Sunday parade until suddenly, the rigging gives up. No warning, no wobble, just snap, and that monster drops like it remembered gravity owes it money. It slams into the work floor hard enough to rearrange the concrete's personality. Dust flying, workers scattering, hearts skipping beats. And this right here is why every grizzled old supervisor like me screams about pre-lift inspections. Shackles, slings, hooks, everything gets checked, or you don't lift a toothpick. And don't even think about standing under a suspended load. You're not Superman, and that rig sure as hell ain't your cape. One failure, one bad call, and the ground becomes your worst enemy. Alright fellas, here's a real oh no moment. A flatbed stuck on the railway tracks with a whole excavator riding on it, and in the distance you hear that train horn. Driver's in full panic, but at that point there's nothing he can do. And then it happens. The train slams through the flatbed and the excavator like they're cardboard cutouts. One split second and tens of thousands in machinery turn into scrap. This is why you never gamble with train crossings. All it took was one little piece of welding slag hitting flammable junk outside the factory, and boom, the whole place lit up like a bonfire. With more flammables inside, that fire spread faster than bad news on payday. Luckily, everyone got out in time. No injuries, just a costly reminder to keep sparks away from fuel. They loaded that roof structure all wrong, put in way too much weight on one side. The crane arms bent like cheap metal, and the whole thing collapsed in seconds. Big lifts need perfect planning and balance. One bad weight call, and you're not lifting a roof, you're causing a collapse. Alright boys, here's a maritime disaster in the making. They're loading a heavy machine onto a boat, crane straining like it skipped leg day, then creak, pop, she gives up. The whole load drops straight into the water, yanking the boat with it. Workers start diving off that deck like it's swim practice, cause the boat's tipping and taking on trouble fast. This is what happens when you push a lift past its limits.